Extremely talented musicians have lived and produced various classical music during their times, and one of them is Claude Debussy. He's frequently referred to as the father of musical impressionism and is one of the most renowned composers of the late 19th and earliest 20th centuries. Claude Debussy was a brilliant pianist who embraced his talent, propelled him to a strong start in his musical career. Pretty sure you're curious as to how Debussy's life turned out, right? Keep watching as we take a look at the life of Claude Debussy. Claude Debussy was born in the northwest area of Paris on the 22nd of August, 1863. He was the eldest among the 5 children his parents, Manuel Debussy and Victorine Manoury, gave birth to. Claude's father, Manuel, owned a china shop, and his wife, Victorine, was a seamstress, until they decided to close down the china shop and move to Paris. Manuel then started working in a printing factory, bought an apartment in Rue Saint-Honoré. In 1870, Claude and his sister Adele were taken to their paternal aunt's house in Cannes by their pregnant mother to flee the siege of Paris during the Franco-Prussian War. They stayed there until the next year. Their stay in Cannes turned out to be a blessing for Claude when his aunt enrolled him in piano lessons. At age 7, young Debussy started his first piano lessons with an Italian musician known as Jean Chiaretti. Claude Debussy was highly talented and displayed a willingness to learn, and this granted the 10-year-old a spot at the Conservatory de Paris, one of France's leading music colleges back then. He was a student of the institution for about 11 years, and his first class was piano studies with Antoine Marmontel, who was his teacher. He further took solfège, harmony, and also organ classes while he was at the conservatory. But we cannot say for sure that Claude attended these classes fully, as he was known to mostly skip his classes. Hence, it can be said that he did not find his piano lessons at the conservatory very interesting for him to further pursue it for a long time, because years after, Claude found his expertise in creative composition. Of course, this was much to the disapproval of his conservative professors in the conservatory. But Claude still made great achievements during his years at the conservatory. At the first movement of Chopin's Second Piano Concerto, which was held at the conservatory's annual competition in 1874, Claude received the Deus Ex Me Assist Award for his great performance as a soloist. In 1875, he got the Premier Assist Award and the second position in 1877 during these competitions at the conservatory. He, however, failed the competitions in 1878 and 79 and could not continue taking piano classes at the conservatory, as his failure made him ineligible to do so. Later on, in 1879, his former piano teacher Marmontel helped him secure a summer vacation job as a resident pianist at the Château de Chanussi. Claude made his first compositions during this period, Ballade et la Lune and Princesse d'Espagne. He secured a job the following year as a pianist in the home of Nadezhda van Meck, the patroness of Tchaikovsky. As part of the job, Claude traveled with Nadezhda's family through the summers of 1880 to 1882, while getting to stay at various places in France, Italy, Switzerland, and Moscow. This is when he composed his piano triad in G major for Nadezhda's ensemble, and also a transcription for a piano duet of 3 dances from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. At the end of 1880, summer was over and Claude Debussy had to return to his studies. But while studying, he was engaged to an accompanist for Maria Moreau-Santi singing class, and this he took for 4 years. During this period, Claude took a liking to one of his classmates, Maria Wesner, and in the future years, she inspired Claude to start composing songs. These two ended up dating each other, and during their 7-year relationship, Claude composed 27 songs which were all dedicated to Maria. Turns out, Maria was already married to Henry Wesner, whom she was much younger, but was actively Claude's lover and his muse. We don't know if Henry was aware of his wife's affair or not, but he and Claude were on very good terms, and Henry was known to always cheer Claude in his career. Much to the disapproval of his entire faculty, especially his composition teacher at the Conservatory, Claude refused to follow the orthodox rules of composition at the time. But he still moved to make a name for himself in the line of music he chose. He won the Prix de Rome, France's most prestigious music award, in 1884 with his cantata El Enfant Protégé. Alongside the award was at home at the Villa Medicia, a French academy in Rome. Claude spent only 2 years there, with him being absent a lot of times, mainly because he chose to pay several visits to his lover, Maria. Claude was not even in the slightest bit moved by Italian opera, and never enjoyed the operas of Verdi and Donizetti. He preferred the music of the 16th century composers Lecce and Palestrina. Claude later expressed his choice of music and wrote of his desire to follow the path he wants, with or without the acceptance of the Conservatory Institute. Claude Debussy's story only gets interesting from this point onwards. If you haven't, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you can find out more about some of the best pianists and composers in history. Claude was a man of his own thoughts and ideas. He wanted to blossom and grow the way he chose to. A few of his composed songs, like the cantata La Demoiselle Élue and the symphonic ode Zuliema, were sent to the school, but the Academy condemned them, all claiming that Claude only wrote songs that were bizarre, incomprehensible, unperformable. Claude continued to compose songs, piano pieces, and various other works. Some of his works were performed in public, but they only reached a fair number of people. His fellow composers recognized him as an amazing composer, and since they saw that he had great potential, they proceeded to elect him as the member of the Société Nationale de Musique Committee in 1893. The Yasseya String Quartet performed his string quartet for the first time in the Société Nationale that same year. Maria Vasner ended her affair with Claude, but they at least remained on good terms, and Claude even dedicated his song Madalena to her in 1890. Later that same year, Claude met Erik Satie, who matched his spirit, as he was at the stage where he still had an experimental approach to song composing. Their financial situation was also similar. They both were struggling financially and were both bohemians. Shortly after, Claude got into a relationship with Gabby Dupont, who was the daughter of a tailor from Lecce, and they both moved in together. Claude got to work on an opera version of Maurice Maeterlinck's play Pelléas at Melside, and completed the first draft of Act 1 in 1894. On the other hand, while still cohabiting with Gabby, he had an affair with Theresa Roger, and he publicly announced their engagement. At this point, Claude got rebuked for his behavior toward women, and how he had an affair or the other. Anonymous letters were spread, all pointing to Claude's dishonorable act. That's not all. His financial imbalance and debts were displayed and spread across the city, hence causing his engagement to get called off. His supporters and friends abandoned him also. Claude even got married to one of Gabby's friends, Lily, in October 1899. She threatened to commit suicide if Claude refused to marry her, but in the end, the marriage only lasted for 5 years, and thereafter they divorced. Around the early 1900s, Claude Debussy's songs started to get recognition amongst a group of young poets, artists, musicians, and even critics. These people gathered and formed a group they named Les Apaches, which means the hooligans, in a way to encapsulate the status as artistic outcasts. Also in the 1900s, the first 2 of Claude's 3 orchestral nocturnes was performed for the first time. Even though they did not reach a wide audience, musicians like Alfred Bruno, Pierre de Breville, and Paul Dukas recognized and gave kudos to him. Claude ended up performing the 3 songs in 1901. In October 1905, Claude and Emma's daughter was born at the Debussy home. Shosho, as she was dearly called, was loved by her father and was a musical inspiration to him. When Emma and Claude got married in 1908, everything was going smoothly for Claude as regards his music career, He was appointed a member of the governing council of the Conservatory, among other achievements. Shortly after, Claude Debussy was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and in 1915, his cancer was operated on, and among the earliest colonoscopy operations to be done during that period. But it was only temporary, as Claude died 3 years later on the 25th of March, 1918, in the Debussy's home. Claude Debussy lived his life just like he wanted, to live by his own beliefs and ideas. Although he may have been perceived as being very selfish and that he probably only loved himself, Claude was still appreciated by so many people, and his works were featured on different occasions at concerts across the world. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe.